Hi! Welcome to Farrington Nature Lakes Nature at Home series. Today is Thursday, if you can believe it, Ori. I can't believe it. 11 o'clock. Today we're going to be doing some crafting activities. We are here coming to you live from Saugus, Massachusetts. It is a little bit windy out today. I like the wind. I bet you do, Ori. I bet you do. Does it help you fly? It feels great on my feathers. That's wonderful. Great. So a little bit about Farrington. We're a nonprofit. Our mission is to enhance the lives of children from low-income families through a connection with the natural world. Basically, just getting kids outside. And the way we're going to do that today, we're going to do some nature weaving. Hooray! So I have a couple different activities for us to do. I have a book for us to read. You might hear a few sounds around us since we're outside. Maybe some traffic, some birds, some of the neighbors, some kids playing. It's all part of the world around us. Great, let's get started. Thanks, Ori. No problem. We'll see him later. Okay, so to make some weaving, I have a couple ideas. One idea was to get some sticks. So this is a loom that I made, and it's just one stick shaped like a Y, and then I tied this other stick across the top. So it made this little like triangle shape. And then I used yarn, just knitting yarn. You can use string or twine. You can use part of an old t-shirt cut up. You can use rubber bands too, things like that. So I basically just strung some yarn around, and then you can weave natural materials inside here. Another option would be, I have a piece of cardboard and I put some rubber bands on it. And what you can do is taking some of your natural materials that you found. This is a little piece of, this looks like some dried pokeweed that grew right here in our yard. And what you're doing is you're putting it under some of these and over some and under some of these so that it sticks nice and flat against the cardboard. And then you can keep doing that with some other natural materials as well. Under, over, under, over. Just like that. What I thought might be fun is if you try to make a loom that has 4 sides. So, right, if you have 3 sticks, you can make, what shape is that? Triangle. Good job. If you only have 2 sticks, you could probably string like this and make a little bit kind of like a ladder, but it might get squished up and just become one. So I thought we'd make a loom like this shape. And what shape is this inside? Leave us a comment if you know. Looks like a square to me. You can always adjust it, make it more like a rectangle. You can make it really tiny if you wanted like that. Depending on how big your sticks are and how much string you have, you can play around with what size frame you use. Great. So if you're going for a walk around your neighborhood, your local park, make sure you're always following the safety guidelines. Tell an adult, don't pick up sharp things, and be safe out there. Social distancing, 6 feet apart, right? All right, so we have our 4 sticks. I'm going to get some string. So again, this is just knitting yarn that I had around my house. So, got a pair of scissors too. So I'm gonna cut maybe an arm's length. And what I'm doing is I want to attach at these points where the sticks cross. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath wrapping where the two sticks meet. Grab a couple this way, and then you want to wrap the other way as well. And this doesn't have to be an exact science. And it's okay if they're a little bit loose too. Once all 4 sticks are tied on, it's going to be nice and tight. And then I'll just finish this off, the little overhand knot. And then that one is attached. And then we'll go get some more string. Put it on a carabiner. Thought that would be helpful. You can use different colors of string. You can use, ooh, actually I'll show you. This is part of a t-shirt that I cut. Oh, that's one loop. This is the bottom of the t-shirt that I cut off. And then I also turned it into, it's like yarn. It's like a ball of yarn. So we can try and use this to attach our sticks together. So again, we're going to go underneath where the sticks cross. Hold this nice and snug. It's okay if they move around a little bit. And then we'll go underneath this way, kind of crisscrossing them. Oh, that looks great. And then again, just an overhand knot. You can always trim these edges if you think they are too long. Here, we'll use some of this red yarn now. Yep. Arm's length. Doing some tying. Making our frame. Crisscrossing underneath. This might be a little tricky. We've got small fingers, so you can always ask an adult if you need some help. Alright, tie that on. That looks good. Oh yeah, actually, let's use some of this green yarn, t-shirt yarn again. What color is this? Kind of yellow, kind of green.
High visibility.
High visibility, yes. It seems very bright. Very bright. Has anyone out there ever done maybe finger knitting before? Knitting with knitting needles or using a loom? There's lots of different ways that you can use fabrics to create things. Okay, perfect. Ta-da! Ella, it's like a picture frame. Alright, so we have our frame, and now we're gonna put some yarn in between, so that's gonna be the thing that helps hold the tension where our natural materials are gonna go. So, let's get some more string, shall we? And again, if you don't have lots of yarn like this, you can use any kind of string. It's gonna work. You're just gonna tie it nice and tight. If you have rubber bands too, that's gonna work well. Another fun craft with tying sticks like this is if you make a smaller version of it and you put a leaf on top. It's like a little boat, and you can see if it floats or sinks, depending on how you make your boat. But I did that when I was a little kid. And we would go to the stream or ponds nearby and try and make little boats and race them. Alright, this looks like long enough. So I'm getting a whole big piece of string. Cut this over here. Snip. Careful with the scissors. And now, we're going to tie it on one end. just gonna wrap it around. So I'm going under each side of the stick. I'm pulling it pretty snug. They don't have to be spaced out too evenly. If they're really close, it's actually going to be easier for some of your natural materials.
So we have a question.
Yes.
Which is, where does yarn come from?
Oh, well, great question. This yarn came from Michael's, probably a craft store. But depending on the type of yarn, things like wool yarn comes from sheep. And what they do is they shear the sheep. They give the sheep a haircut in the springtime. And they use that raw material, that sheep hair, and they spin it so that it becomes this like super fine, thin, flexible fabric that people use to knit sweaters or hats or any kind of thing.
Does that hurt the sheep?
It does not hurt the sheep. It's refreshing for the sheep. Think about it, if you're really shaggy. If you're a sheep, you're feeling real shaggy. Your hair's growing everywhere. Finally, it's warm out, and there are a couple different ways that you can shear a sheep. Right? There's the old-fashioned way where you have it looks like a pair of scissors. You're not cutting into the sheep's skin. You're just cutting across the fur, the sheep hair. Sheep shearing. And then there's like a electronic buzzer type that you can shear the sheep with. But yeah, doesn't hurt the sheep. It's like getting a nice fresh haircut. Okay, check it out. We got our loom. We have our string in the middle, and now is the fun part. So these are natural materials I found while walking around near my house. Some of these are really long. Ugh. So they might stick out the sides a little bit. That's okay. But you can always shorten them so that you can fit them in. So now, what I want to do is, again, I'm going under and over and under and over and under and over some of these materials. Over, under, over, under. It's okay if you don't get every single string, as long as you have like 4 or 5 to hold them in place. And let's see. Ooh, this looks like a cool one. Check this out. This looks like a dried pine branch. You see how they're brown like that? All the chlorophyll is gone from them. Ooh, and there's some little seed pods floating around. Doesn't really smell like much. Smells kind of like a little bit like an old pine tree. What I think is we can take some of these branches and pull them off. And then we can weave these in. Under, over, under, over. That looks good. What else did I find? Ooh, this one. You know, when I first picked this up, I thought it was an old banana peel. It's not. It's part of a reed. So there are these really tall reeds that grow down by the Saugus River here. And they have these little stalks, these little leaves, that when they dry, they flatten out like this. And if you can hear that, it sounds like paper. Doesn't really smell like much. Maybe a little bit like grass. Alright, so now we'll take this and we'll weave it into our loom here. And little pieces are gonna fall off, and that's okay. Ooh, this looks great. Find something green, I think. Whoa, check this out. It feels kind of spiky. And smells like a new mustache. Smells like a pine tree. I like the feel of this. It almost reminds me of a hairbrush. I bet this is gonna stick really nicely in our loom. All right, so again, we're gonna put this under and over and under, like that. And our nature weaving is coming together. Beautiful. What else can we find? Ooh. What about this thing? Da-da-da-da. What do you think this is from? Corn? There's not a lot of corn growing here in Massachusetts. This looks like a palm frond to me. It's dried out. And I like how it gets really skinny at the ends here. Not much of a smell. Feels superb. There. I think this will also fit nicely in our nature weaving. So if you ever do any weaving at home, feel free to take a picture, leave it up on Facebook. You can tag Farrington Nature Lake. Here, I bet we can get 2 of these up here. Whoa, it fits. Look at this. This looks great to me. Let me check in with Ori. Ori, yes. Check out this cool nature weaving that we did. Let me see. Ooh, this looks like it'd make a very nice nest for me. I think Ori likes it. Is it comfortable? It also kind of looks like a raft that you could float on, Ori. This is great. Thanks, Meg. Oh, no problem, Ori. If you're looking for a simpler project that involves string and sticks, I've got just the craft for you. First, you'll need a stick. This stick, it's not super straight up and down, and it's got some little branches at the top, which I think will be perfect for what we're gonna do. And depending on what materials you have around, maybe you have some of that t-shirt material, you can use that. Maybe you have some yarn that you can use. I have, this is embroidery thread. So it's a really thin type of thread that people might use when they're stitching things on clothing, designs on clothing. Maybe you're making bracelets. Maybe you'll see looms that are circular and they hold fabric really tight and have a design on them. But I thought what we could use this string for is making a magic wand. So the way you're gonna do that is we're gonna pick a color. I'm gonna pick pink first. And all we're doing is we're just gonna wrap that string around nice and snug. And the idea is that you're gonna wrap the whole branch up in colored string.
How do you keep it from unwrapping at the bottom?
Ooh, I'm holding it with my thumb. You can also just pull it really tight. You can tie a knot at one end to keep it from going. You can hold the string and then just turn the stick. That also works as well. And this is a really thin piece of string, so it's going to take a long time to wrap this up. But if you have a thicker piece, I can show you in a second, it'll go a lot faster. I'm keeping my string nice and close together, but you could also spread the string out like this. this if you wanted a different kind of design. And at the end, you can just tie a little, oop, that didn't quite work. You can tie a little knot here. Beep. And then you can pick your next color. If you used, say, a thicker string, here, maybe we'll use our bright neon yellow. Wrap this around. You can see that it'll go a lot quicker. You can cover a lot more stick if it's really thick fabric. It looks like we're putting a little shirt on the stick. And if you think, you know what, that's enough of this bright yellow color, you can always just cut off the extra, and again, you can just tie a little knot so it doesn't unravel. And then depending on how many colors you have, you can wrap the rest of the stick. You can wrap each little branch a different color if you wanted. You're gonna want to get real fancy. You can take some little natural materials. This is another type of dried leaf that I found down by the river. And you can stick these in to the little folds of the string, and you can make little fancy decorations on your magic wand. Pretty cool.
So your audience is hearing a chiming sound in the background. What is that sound?
Ooh, that's a great question. That's a wind chime that one of our neighbors has hanging by his garage. It's a little bit windy out today, and so the chimes are these metal hollow columns. So as the wind is moving those columns, they're bumping into each other and making that chiming noise. Very good job using your senses to hear what's around you. If you have any other questions, can you hear those birds chirping? They are very loud. I think those are the birds that they have a little nest that's right below us, right at the bottom of the porch here. I wonder what they're saying. Ori, can you translate the bird for us?
They're probably...
Those aren't Orioles. I don't know what they're saying.
Do you think they want some of your nature stuff for their nest?
Ooh, maybe. Maybe we can leave out some of our nature stuff for the birds to make their nests.
Some of it looks soft.
Yeah, especially this stuff. Check this out. This reminds me of feathers or even like fur. Ooh, and some of it's coming off. This doesn't really smell like anything. Ooh, but it's like a feather boa. You see those seeds coming off? Floating away. Great. I think we have a few minutes. I would love to share one of my favorite books about yarn, if we have time. If there are other questions, let me know. But I would love to read this book. It's called Extra Yarn. It's by Mac Barnett and illustrated by John Clausen. He's one of my favorite illustrators. Extra Yarn, and it's about yarn. Oh, we used yarn today. Let's read it. Extra Yarn. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. See Annabelle, her tiny box, and everything is just black and white. So she went home and knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars too. But there was still extra yarn. Check it out. Dog sweater. So silly. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. Oh, it's not very nice to tease people as that. But you know, it turned out he was jealous. And even after she'd made a sweater for Nate and his dog and for herself and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. Oh my gosh, this is a big box of yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet," shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone. Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said, "so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." But it turned out she could. And she did. Look at all the sweaters. Even for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton, and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabelle still had extra yarn. She made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats and for other animals too. Soon, people thought, soon Annabelle will run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. Look at that, the mailbox has a sweater. Even the bird has a sweater. How silly. Things began to change in that little town. Look at all the buildings covered in sweaters.
It's so pretty.
How silly, but so pretty. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day, an archduke who was very fond of clothes sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. Look, here's the archduke with his fancy hat. "Little girl," said the archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I am willing to offer you $1 million. "No thanks," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The archduke's mustache twitched. $2 million, he said. Annabelle shook her head. "No thanks." $10 million, shouted the archduke. "Take it or leave it." "Leave it," said Annabelle. "I won't sell the yarn." And she didn't. So that night, the archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house, and they stole the box, and they took it to the archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea. Back to his castle. The archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair. Then he took out the box, and he lifted its lid, and he looked inside. What's he gonna find? There's nothing in it. His mustache quivered. It shivered. It trembled. The archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." That's not very nice. But, you see the box? It's floating on a little piece of ice, floating across the sea. Ooh, look, she found it. There's Annabelle. She found her box. But it turned out she was. Look, she knit this tree a whole sweater. And Mars her dog. The end. Isn't that a great book? Annabelle is so cool. She knit all those sweaters and she stood up for herself. Very cool. Well, friends, this has been a blast hanging out with you. Extra Yarn, I recommend the book. It's great. Let's check in with Ori. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Hello, friends. Hey, Ori. This was a lot of fun. Oh, I'm so glad you had fun, Ori. Well, we'll be back at 2 o'clock today making some more cool nature things. So gather up some washable paint if you have it, some sticks, maybe some leaves. If you don't have those things, that's okay. I'll show you all about how we're going to make some natural paintbrushes. I'm very excited about it. I hope you learned a little bit about nature weaving. And I hope you get outside. It's nice and sunny today. The sky is blue. The sun feels so good on my face. Makes me feel happy. Ooh, I wanted to show you what's growing in my little pots really quick, and then we'll go to questions. So come on over, take a look. So over here, I have radishes that are starting to pop up, tiny little leaves. There's carrots in the back, but they're very, very thin, so it's hard to see. Tiny little green things. And then these little red leaves. This is red leaf lettuce that's starting to grow.
Is it for Eleanor?
Some of it will be for Eleanor. Some of it will be for me. And then these are peas, and they're just beginning to sprout. Look how cute these tiny little green little things are. Good job, peas. Good job growing. All right, any last questions or comments about nature weaving or being outside? Leave a comment. We'll check in later. Thanks for watching. My name is Meg from Barrington NatureLink, and this has been Crafting with Meg as part of our Nature at Home series. We'll see you at 2 o'clock today. All right, bye.